recap. All right, so we are towards the end of this logic module, and what we had discussed yesterday was a very important concept in circuit design called Boolean circuit minimization. Okay, so this is the topic of interest which we are still continuing, which is Boolean circuit minimization. Okay, so what is the prime idea behind Boolean circuit minimization? The idea is whenever you have any Boolean expression, which will obviously have an equivalent Boolean circuit, what you want to do is you want to change the given expression from a standard form to a non-standard form. Okay, and the motivation of going to a non-standard form is that standard form which has least number of literals. Okay, and again, the main motivation of why having least literals, because you want to reduce the total number of gates or the number of inputs you provide to the gates in a given circuit design, right? So your goal is to minimize the circuit as much as possible. Okay, and how do you achieve that? You achieve that by doing the Boolean minimization. You want to reduce the expression to the least possible number of literals. And then yesterday we discussed, we had a long discussion of why, what is the complexity of this problem. It's not a simple problem, it's a computationally hard problem. And then we discussed why is it still relevant? Because now logic gates standalone are nowhere in picture, right? We have moved to integrated circuit technology. Where already we are capable of having multiples of logic gates on a single circuit, right? But there also we discussed why it's still relevant to have a Boolean circuit minimization, because now even if your capacity of handling gates on a circuit is high, but you can reuse that part, that capacity to do different functions. So the idea is still not lost, that you want to still do a particular job by reducing the number of gates involved to perform any function, right? And as we discussed yesterday, there are primarily two approaches to do this. One is Karnaugh maps, and other is Quine-McCluskey method. So Karnaugh maps is what we started off yesterday. So Karnaugh map is simply a graphical representation of all possible combination of literals. So two variable case we discussed yesterday. So if I have two variables, I have four possible literal combination: x, x complement, y, y complement. Okay, and then the way Karnaugh maps work is you put a 1 in the term which is present in your expression, and where there's no min term, you just don't put anything. Okay, so like if I have suppose x, y and x bar, y bar, so x, y I'll put a 1, and x bar, y bar I will put a 1, and in others I'll not put anything, right? And then we saw how can we minimize it. We can minimize only by grouping the ones together. Okay, and our goal is always to start from the highest grouping of ones and try to reduce it in the least possible literal. Okay, so how do you do the grouping? For that comes the concept of the cells should be adjacent. Okay, can anyone recall when do we say two cells in this Karnaugh map are adjacent? What is the general idea, notion of being adjacent in a Karnaugh map? Yes, class. When do we say two cells are adjacent in a Karnaugh map? All should be same. Is it that all should be same? Okay, so most of you are giving a little vague definition. So when one literal is common, in general, you can say when one literal is different. Because suppose now when you move to 3, you cannot say one literal is common, right? Because now that means two are different. In general, what we mean is we say two cells are adjacent when they differ by exactly one literal. That's like a more generic definition for any number of variables. So any two cells are said to be adjacent if they differ by one variable. So like you can see, this is xy, this is xy bar. So so you can see the x is the only common literal, right? So they are adjacent. They differ by only one variable. So today what we are going to discuss is more variations of Karnaugh map to 3 and 4 variables, and hopefully we'll also do the other method. Okay, so let us start. Okay, so this we discussed yesterday. So this is something you need to like internalize. When we say the two cells are adjacent, only when they differ in exactly one literal. So yesterday we saw two variable example. So today we are going to start with three variable case. Okay. Now, when we talk about Karnaugh map with three variables, so what we have is for three variables, what are the possible combinations? Yes, class, if I have three variables, what are the possible combinations? Three variables, all possible combinations of three variables. So you have six literals, x, x bar, y bar, z, z bar. But what are the all possible combinations? There are eight combinations. Okay, so as a result, Karnaugh map have these eight cells. Okay, so you pick one of the variables on this y-axis, x, x bar, and you write all possible combinations of the other two variables on the other side. Okay, and the way you need to visualize it, you consider it as a cylindrical, that is there's a wraparound. Okay, so it's not that just these two cells are adjacent, this and this cell is also adjacent. Okay, so you need to visualize it like you are wrapping it around like a cylinder, like you can see here. Okay, so this cell is also adjacent to this, so let me number them. Okay, so 1 is also adjacent to 4. Similarly, 5 is adjacent to 8. Okay, so it's a wraparound. So in general, you can also follow this wraparound by using the general definition of adjacent. Okay, as we just recall that two cells are adjacent if they represent and differ in exactly one literal. So if you look at this, it is x, y, z, and this is x, y bar, z bar. So you can see it's differing only in one literal. So they are adjacent. Okay, so in general, K map of three variables is written like this. You have one variable on one side and combination of two variables on other side. And the way it's thought is like a common cylinder. Okay, so this boundary we say is shared. This is the wrapping boundary. Okay, why this is important? Because remember, Karnaugh map, your end goal is to find the adjacent cells, which will help you in minimization. Okay, so this wraparound visualization is very important. Okay, is this clear? How a three variable Karnaugh map is placed? How do you find the adjacent cells? Okay, we'll move on to examples, but is this clear, class? The visualization of three variable Karnaugh map, it's a wraparound. Okay, this is a square, and as if you wrap it around like a cylinder, that's how you will find the adjacent cells. Okay, let us see some examples to get a hold of it better. Okay, so suppose I have two terms, x, y bar, z bar, and x bar, y bar, z bar. Okay, now if you have to use Karnaugh map, okay, so you can simply group it in two variables. Okay, and what is the resultant variable? X and x bar will kind of negate each other, and the common variable left is just y bar, z bar. Okay, similarly, if I have the terms x bar, y, z and x bar, y bar, z, as I already told you, are these two cells adjacent? Can I combine them? Yes, because they differ in only one literal. You can see they differ only in only the z1 is what we say, we can take common of them, right? So you can do it like this. Okay, this is allowed. Similarly, in this case, suppose I have these four ones. Okay, so so what is the equivalent? Yes, these two. Okay, so if you just look at what are the common variables, you can see y complement. Okay, it's been used. Z complement is there, but there is no z pairing z. And if you look at x complement, that is also u. So if you combine all of them, as I said, always combine in the largest group. Okay, you should not start with doing like this, two groups. Always start with the largest group. If you are capable of doing grouping in 6, do it in 6. If not in 6, then do it in 4, and so on. Okay, always start with the larger group. So I'll start with the larger group. I'll combine all of them. Okay, and what is left is the common variable z bar. Okay, so you can see how we have minimized these 4 terms just to a single variable. Okay, can you tell me in this case what would be the resultant expression? How should I group them up? Yes, class, can you tell me what will be the resultant expression? Okay, so I can simply group them up like this. Okay, and you can see y complement z complement, all are being cancelled. So only thing left is x bar, right? Similarly, what if I have all ones? Okay, we already discussed this. When all are true, then what is the special case? If all of the terms are present, excellent, it is equal to 1, because since all combinations, this is true for all combinations, so the entire function is 1. It's always true. Okay. Are these examples clear? So what we need to show here is, it's not just normal adjacency of pairing of 2. You can also have groupings like this. Okay, and you can also have larger groups than 2. Okay, depending on whatever is your larger group, that's how you start covering your Karnoff map. Okay, let us see some more examples now in some other form. So let us start with this one. So let me draw Karnoff map for this. So I have x complement, y z complement, okay. Okay, so let us do first one. So you tell me which blocks I need to fill in. Okay, so let us try to practice it. So tell me, for part A, what all blocks do I need to fill in? First is x, y, z prime. Sorry, what is the question, Soumya? No. This is one of the forms. You can take y also there. There's no restriction. It's just that one variable is on one axis and two other on other side. I'm just copying it because the solution is in this form. That's why. Otherwise, there's no restriction. So, okay. Like suppose sometimes you have A, B, C. Then it's your choice which one you put it. So that doesn't matter. Okay. There's no restriction as such. Is that clear, Somit? Okay, so tell me. So first is x, y, z prime. So I have 2. X, y prime, z prime. So I have 3. And then what else? Then I have x prime, y, z, 5. And last one, 7. Right? Now can you tell me the groupings? How should I group them up? Yes, class, tell me the groupings. Which one should I group? Can I group this with something? Can I group this with something? Can I group block 5 with any term? No. So this term will as it is be in my extension. Good. What about these? How can I cover? Excellent. 2, 3. So what is the equivalent expression for 2, 3? Yes, class. What is the equivalent expression for 2, 3? So you have x, y, z prime, and you have x, y prime, z prime, right? So what are the common ones? So y is cancelling out, right? You have x, z prime. Okay, do it carefully. Okay, now try this one. I can do a pairing here also. So what is the resultant? What is the resultant of 3, 7? If I just do a pairing of 3, 7. Very good. Okay. So this is what we have. We have x z prime and y z prime, x prime z prime. Okay. So let me just let's just quickly see some more examples. Okay, coming back here. Okay, let's do part B. So tell me what all should I fill in part B? So tell me which all blocks to fill. So you have x, y, z prime. You have x, y prime, z prime. You have x prime, y, z. You have x prime, y prime, z. And you have x prime, y prime, z prime. Okay. So tell me, how do I group this? Can I group it with something? Now, can I group this one with something? Let me number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, class, can I group this one? Is there any cell which is adjacent to 1? There's nothing in 1. 1 is empty, right? There's no XYZ term. You have just this much. 5 and 8, right? So 5 and 8 are a wraparound. Okay. What else? What is the other larger group? I have kept this same. Just a minute. So we have y z prime. This is y prime z. Okay, so this is your y prime z. Well, let me just I have just used the notation. Let me show it. So suppose this is my Karnaugh map. I had just exchanged these two terms. Okay, so can you tell me the equivalent expression? I just swapped these two in my notation. So tell me the equivalent expression for this. First of all, tell me about this. When I group these two, what term do I get? So I have x prime yz and I have x prime y prime z. Okay. So what is the term I get from this? Yes, class. Okay, I get the term x prime z, right? Now, what about this block of 4? So y prime is still there. Z prime goes, x prime goes, right? So it's just y prime. So in general, you can note that whenever you do a grouping of 2, the number of literals will be 2. And when you do a grouping of 4, it will be reduced to 1, right? So it's always in powers of 2. It's 2, 4, like you can have it 8, right? So it will keep on reducing your literals. Okay, great. Now let's look at the C part. Okay, so C part, I have this kind of one mappings. Okay, so the way I can group them together is, so one is this 4, another is group of these 4, and third one is this. Okay, I want to cover all with the largest possible groups. Okay, so can you tell me first of this longitudinal one? What is the term associated with it? Excellent. It is x because y complement are gone, z as well as z complement. Both literals are present, so these terms are gone. What about this half half? Okay, so let me just write it. It is x, y, z. It is x bar y z. Okay, so you can see y z is here common. Then we have x y bar z and x bar y bar z. Right, so you can see x, both varieties are there, y, both varieties are there. So what is left? Very good, it is just z. Okay, and remember, four groups give you just one variable. What about this one? Excellent. Okay, so this is what you have. You have x plus y bar plus z. Okay, now let us do the last part. And okay, the last part is little, there's something more to understand here. Okay, I have these four groups, so I have grouped them like this: one, two. Okay, so this would have been sufficient if I do it. So let me just draw it here for better understanding. Okay, forget about what the way they have done grouping here. Ideally, if I just gave you this question, what would be your ideal grouping? Yes, class, what would be your ideal grouping? If you didn't see this diagram, they have done these three blocks. What would be your ideal grouping based on your understanding of how Karnaugh maps work? What would be the two pairs which you will form? Yes, class, tell me in terms of block numbers you can mention. What would be the pairing you would do for this example? Yeah, as simple as that, you would do 2, 3 and 7, 8, right? So what is the term I'll get from 2, 3? Yes, Dhananjay, what term will I get from 2, 3? If I combine these two, very good, I'll get x, z prime. And what about this? What about 7, 8? I'll get x prime and y prime, right? So these two are known as, in technical terms, they are known as essential prime implicants. Okay, but if I do this grouping, is this valid or invalid? If I do this, this, is this valid or invalid? This is a valid grouping, right? And what term would this give? Can you tell me what term will I get? I'll get y prime z prime. Okay, so the reason I mentioned this example is, so somebody may say, like, I think Abhay has already written that the expression could be x z prime, x y prime, and y prime z prime. Okay, but this last one, as you can see, the cells it's covering, they are already covered. Okay, the cells of 3 and 7 are already covered. So such kind of terms are known as prime implicants, but they are not essential prime implicants. Essential prime implicants are those which cover something new. Prime implicants is which just cover your term. Okay, and in general, when you are doing circuit minimization, you should always mention only the essential prime implicants. That's why if you look at the reduced expression of this, it will only be this term and this term. Okay, this prime implicant term is so y prime z prime is a prime implicant, but since it's not essential. Okay, what do I mean by being essential? By being essential, I mean the cells covered, those cells which are have not been covered by anything else. Okay, but if we look at the cells covered by y prime z prime, they are already covered by two terms. Okay, so such kind of terms are known as prime implicants, but they are not essential prime implicants. So such terms are not part of the minimized version. Okay, so this is something you need to keep in mind. See, now if I suppose didn't have these groupings, the problem is I would have then one and then single terms, which would mean I will get much larger circuit than my minimized circuit here. Okay, so always we have to start with such kind of groupings which start from the largest, so that we have, because largest the grouping, least will be the number of literals. Okay, is this clear, the difference between a prime implicant and essential prime implicant? Okay, I'll just quickly repeat. Prime implicant are simply the minimized terms, but essential prime implicants are those terms which cover your new cells. Okay, so non-essential ones will cover the existing cells only. Okay, and the terms which you include in your Boolean minimization are always the essential prime implicants. Okay, is this clear? The difference between implicants and prime implicants? Sorry, the essential prime implicants and implicants. Is this clear, the difference? Yes, class, say yes or no. Okay, great. So let us move then to the 4 variable case, which is like kind of maximum practically doable using K-maps. So in this, what you're going to do, like in 3 case, you put in all possible 2 combinations on one side. Now the other 2 variables also, you will put all combinations on the other side. Okay, so as a result, you have 16 possible cells representing 16 possible terms. Okay, and the logic of adjacent is still same. 2 cells are adjacent if they differ in only 1 literal. Okay, now how do you visualize? What all possible groupings you can do? These groupings though you can do, which are like directly visible. Okay, and it's also wrap around like this. You can see it for yourself if you check W, X, Y, Z, and other is W, X, Y bar Z. So you can see they differ only in 1 literal. So all these terms are adjacent. Okay. Any other thing which will come with this new dimension? So left and right are wrappable. Okay, there's a wrap around between the left and right sides, which was also there in 3 variable. So what do you think will be now addition in, logically, what will be the addition in 4 variables? Anyone? What would be the logical extension? Excellent, Dhananjay. Now what we have is top and bottom also have a wrap around. Okay, and you can check it for yourself. You take one term, say W, X, Y prime, Z prime, and below it, you have W prime, X, Y prime, Z prime. They again differ in only 1 literal. Okay, so not only left and right are wrap around, you also have a wrap around top and bottom. Okay, which in like if you look into the structures, it's like a torus. Okay, a wrap around torus. Okay, so now when you have to make, simplification, you can use these adjacent cells as well. Okay, is this visualization clear? How we are going to find the adjacent cells? Left, right, as well as top, bottom. Okay, is this clear, class? The 2 wraparounds, left, right, top, bottom. Okay, and the center ones are already there. So let's see some examples. Okay, so you can see this is a valid grouping. Okay, so you have W, X bar, Y, Z, and you have, let me just kind of, there are some mistakes here. So I have W, X bar, Y, Z, and I have W, X bar, Y bar, Z. Okay, so what is the equivalent expression? So the equivalent expression is Y bar will negate, and you have W, X bar, Z, right? Similarly, if you have suppose like 4 ones in a row, you can group them together. Okay, so Y bar, Z bar kind of cancel. So what you're left with is W bar, X bar. Okay, tell me about this one. Are these 4 cells adjacent? Yes, can we combine them, class? Yeah, we can do them like this because we have left, right, as well as top, bottom combination. So what is the equivalent expression? What is the equivalent expression? Yes, class, what is the equivalent expression? So you need to see Y bar, both cases are covered. W bar, both cases are covered. So what is left? I want everyone to try. Tell me what is the equivalent expression if I have to group these four. Okay, excellent. It is xz. Okay, I don't know why they have written z bar. Okay, so there's a mistake there. Okay, similarly, now this last one. Suppose I have ones like this. Okay, you can just group them all together, and the equivalent is w bar, all literals covered, x bar, all literals covered, y bar, again literals covered. Only thing left is z bar. Okay. So this was your K map in 2, 3, and 4 variables. Okay. Is this clear? Is this clear? All K map combinations 2, 3, and 4. Okay, I'll just end this up by just kind of summarizing. Okay, so when I have two variables, okay, x bar, y bar, only adjacent cells are these. Okay, which kind of differ in one literal. Okay, then when we move to two variables, then in addition to what were the adjacencies in the two variable, we also have left right wraparound. Okay, you can combine the things. And then finally, when we move on to four variables where we have all possible 16 combinations on both sides of the axes. In this case, as I mentioned already, not only you have left right wraparound, you also have top bottom left round. Okay, so these wraparounds, what they help you to identify is the largest possible box. Okay, so always whenever you are going for minimization, always start with the largest possible block that would cover all possible ones. Okay, so that's about K maps. There are some additional terms in K maps which you will study in your digital logic course. I'll just briefly give an idea about them. So there's something called don't care terms. Okay, what are these don't care terms? I'll just give an idea. You will study this more in your digital logic course. So normally what happens when we have these Boolean circuits, a lot of times we don't care about what is the input of some gates. Okay, like suppose I give you this digital circuit. So suppose this is my digital circuit. And suppose I have three inputs X, Y, Z, and I'm not concerned what is the output of this fourth, what is the input of this fourth. You know, it's like I have a practical application wherein I want to take readings from three sensors, and fourth sensor is just there because I didn't have any reading. You know, it can take any value. A lot of times it is practically useful in the Boolean circuit design that there's some input where you're not concerned about what is its value. Okay, to represent such kind of inputs, we have in our Boolean expression things called don't care terms. Okay, so don't care terms are those terms which basically represent those inputs, you know, whose value you're not concerned about. Okay, like I can give you an example. Suppose my W is my don't care term. Okay, and now what happens? I have in my Boolean expression, I have these two ones here. Okay, but my W is a don't care term. Don't care term means it can take any input. Okay, so that means whatever boxes are there where I have the value of W, I can put a D there. That means any of these can be true because I don't specifically know whether the term is there or not. Okay, so what these don't care terms help you is they help you in further minimization. You can see if I consider D to be 1, I can do a minimization of this as well and reduce it to a single term. Right, so if I do a minimization of this, can you tell me what is the equivalent term? Assuming that this D is a 1. So what term do I get from this grouping? Yes, class, what term do I get from this grouping? YZ, right, which is clearly smaller than this. So don't care terms concept comes where there are inputs whose values you're not sure of. So what they help in Boolean minimization is to reduce your number of literals. These may not always be present, but if they are present, this is their job. You treat them as a 1 and get the reduced expression. Okay. Is that clear, more or less, what is the idea of don't care terms? Yes, class, is that clear? This is not relevant from our discrete math course, but since we have done it in extensive manner, so I thought I'll touch up on this as well. Is it clear the use of don't care terms? So this is an input which we don't know what value it will take, whether it will be present or not. Okay. So what the benefit of this don't care term is that because of this ambiguity, we can just assume that all those boxes are present or those min terms are present. Okay, which in turn help us in reducing the circuit further. Okay, this may not be present all the time, but only for those special cases where such inputs are valid. Okay, is this clear? The don't care terms idea and how it can result in minimization? Okay. Anyone? Any doubt? I just want an answer from Dhananjay. Anyone else? Any question? So this basically finishes our Karnoff maps, and I'm going to move to the next method. Okay, so if anyone has questions in the previous method, please let me know so that before I proceed, I can help you answer them. Any questions, class? Say yes or no. Say yes or no. I'll move forward. Okay. So I assume everyone is done with it. So let's move to the next method of Boolean circuit minimization, which is known as Quine-McCluskey method. Okay, so as we saw in K-maps, K-maps were good as long as your variables were less, right? But as soon as the variables start increasing, even for 4 variables, the grouping becomes little tricky to do, because what you need to do in K-maps is you have to rely on your visual inspection. You have to visually inspect what are the terms which are identical or adjacent and group them up, right? So that's why there came the need to automate this process of generating the sum of products expansion. And that's where Quine-McCluskey method came in. So what this method does is it kind of makes the process of finding the minimization little automated. Okay, there will be standard steps to follow, which you can easily automate using any computer program. Okay, so this was developed in 1950s by two people, W.B. Quine and E.J. McCluskey. So what I'll do is I'll explain this method directly using an example. Okay, so let us see how Quine-McCluskey method works with the given example. Okay, so Quine-McCluskey method, let us use it to find the equivalent of this. Okay, so what is the step one? The step one for this Quine-McCluskey method is to find the binary equivalent of all the terms, okay, and arrange them in descending order of number of ones. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So whenever I have a literal in its original form, I represent in a bit string by 1. Whenever it's in its complement form, I represent it by 0. Okay, so if I have x, y, z, what is the equivalent bit string? Okay, so we can see all 3 variables are in their original form. So what will be the resultant string? It will be 1, 1, 1, right? Because all of them are in original form. Similarly, if I have suppose x, y complement z, then what is the equivalent string? X is in original form, y is in complement form, z is in original form. So I have 1, 0, 1. Okay, so same thing I do for all the terms which are present. I arrange them I change them into their binary form where complements get 0 and originals get 1, and I arrange them in order of decreasing order of their ones. So you can see this bit string has 3 ones, so this is at the top. Then I have bit strings with 2, then bit strings with 1, and bit string with 0. Okay, so this is the first step. What you do, you find the binary string equivalent of your minterm and arrange it in the descending order of the number of ones. Okay, so that's the first step. What is the second step? In second step, what you do, you consider the minterms and combine those which differ exactly in one literal. Okay, so in terms of bit strings, what does it mean? It means that when we have two minterms which we can combine, they should basically differ in exactly one of the positions. Okay, like you can see, if I compare 111 with 101, so basically these partitions that I have done, so you can always compare this partition with this with this with this. Can I compare third partition with this zero partition for this step? No. Why? Because we need those strings which differ in one literal, which means they will be the adjacent parts, right? So now let's look at the first case. Okay, suppose I have 111 and 101, right? So we can see they differ in exactly one literal. So what you need to do, wherever they differ, you put a dash there. So it's 1 dash 1. Dash indicates it can be 1 or 0. Okay, can you tell me other combinations which I can combine? Let me just name them. Okay, so one combination is 1 comma 2. It will give me 1 dash 1. Anything else which I can combine with 1? Very good. 1 comma 3. And what will be the equivalent of that? Tell me in dash notation. Very good. So we have 1 1 1 and we have 0 1 1. So 1 0 gives dash and 1 1. Excellent. What about others? So can I combine 1 with 4 or 1 with 5? No. Right? So let us now see this 2. Can I combine 2 with anything? Very good. 2 and 4. What is the equivalent? So I have 1 0 1 and 0 0 1. Dash 0 1. Excellent. Anything else? Any other terms? Very good. 3 4. And what is the equivalent? 0 dash 1. Excellent. What about anything else? So 1 2 1 3 2 4 3 4. Anything else? Very good. Last is 4 5. Okay, and what do we have? 0 0 dash. Okay, so this is your second step. You start combining the bit strings in the adjacent columns, okay, which differ in only one literal. Okay, after you have done this, the third step is to further combine these strings. Okay, now you look at these dashed versions and you combine the two terms only if they contain literals for same two variables. Okay, so in terms of bit strings, what you need is these strings should have dash in same position and they should differ in exactly one of the two slots. So dash should be in same position. Okay, and what you need to do, the other one should be variable. Now, can you tell me out of all these 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 5, which satisfy this condition? You should have dash in same position. Okay. And other than dash, you should differ in exactly one variable. Can you tell me which combination satisfy this? Dash in same position and other than that, you differ in one variable. Can you tell me the pairs which satisfy this? Excellent. 1, 3. 1, 3 is this. You have 1, 3, which is 1, 3 and what? So 1, 3 and you have 2, 4. Dash in same position, differ in this. So the resultant is dash dash 1. Okay, so you combine 1, 3, 2, 4. Okay, what about 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4? Can we combine them? 1, 2, 3, 4. Can we combine them? Yes. So what do we get the equivalent? What is the equivalent class? In terms of dash notation, tell me when I combine them, what do I get? 1 0 is replaced by dash dash 1. Okay, so you can see it's exactly the same as what we got previous. Okay, can I combine 4 5 with anything? Is there anything which has dash here and differs in one variable? Anything which can be combined with 4, 5? No, right? So this is a table actually what you get. Say you have uh, two variables combined and then you have four variables combined. Okay. Now this was for three terms. Okay, but you can easily automate it to 4, 5, 6 variables. What you have to do? What would you do in step 3 if it were 4 variables now? Okay, instead of 3, now if there were 4 variables x, y, z, w. So in step 1 you combine 2, so it would give you 3 variables. In step 2 it would combine 4 and it would give you 2 variables. What would you do in step 3 then? Here you look that it should differ in one variable. Here you look, the dash should be at same position and it should differ in one variable. So what would be you looking at step 3 if you had 4 variables? Just try to, logically generalize it. That's where you understand a technique. If I had to logically generalize it to 4 variables, definitely I would have a step 3 as well. Very good. So what you require is dash should be matching, two dash should be matching, and it should be differing in one variable. Similarly, if I had 5 variables, step 3 and step 4 would be then two dash same and one different variable, and so on. You can generalize it. Okay. Now, once you are done with this product, you get these step 1 and step 2. What is the next step? You have not yet reduced it to some form. The next step is to identify what is the minimum set of products which can represent your given Boolean function. Okay, so the way this is done is you make another table in which you write all possible candidate products. Okay, the original ones, all these terms. Okay, these are written on x-axis, and on y-axis you write the reduced terms. Okay, you put a x there. So what you in general do, you want to find a candidate product term which covers all the original terms. Okay, so one thing to note is whenever there is x only in a column, then that term you have to definitely take. Okay, let me just illustrate with an example. So you can see the expression we had these 5 original terms. So these 5 terms will become your column headings. Okay. Now, what you do is you see what are the terms I got from reduction. We know that out of all these 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, all of them were replaced by z. So z is one term, right? What about this 4, 5 group? I couldn't find any pairing term here, right? So this term goes as it is. So these are the two candidate terms which I have received from the step 1 and step 2. So I place them here. Okay. And what I do, I place a cross of all the terms which have been involved in getting that term. Okay. So you can see XYZ was able to, you were able to get Z from one of these XYZ terms. Similarly, X prime, Y prime, Z also gave you this Z term, right? So you have the name 1, 2, 3, 4. All of them were involved in getting the Z term. So what you do, in all those first 4 terms, you put a cross. Similarly, what are the 2 terms which help you get this XY? They were just 4, 5, right? So you put a X in these 2 terms. Okay. So in general, if you get multiple terms and any row which has even a 1x, that term you have to consider. So if you look at the final expression, what would be the final equivalent answer for this? Yes, class, what would be the final equivalent answer? What are the terms which you finally reduce this Boolean expression to? This is normal. You can visualize it using Karnaugh map, right? Or even if not Karnaugh map, you can just see the terms. It is simply the final answer is Z and XY prime, right? You can also confirm it using Karnaugh map. So if I do Karnaugh map, okay, so I have 3 variables. I have yz, I have y prime z prime, y z prime, and y z prime. Right, so I have x y z, x y prime z, and we have x prime y z, x prime y prime z, and what else? This. Okay, so if you do the Karnaugh mapping, what are the groups you can do just to verify, that this is correct? Tell me, if I do Karnaugh map for these three variable functions, what are the groupings I can do? Yes, class, tell me. What are the groupings I can do? I just want to verify Quinn-McCluskey method gave me the correct answer. If I go by standard Karnaugh method, what are the groupings I can do? So first is 1, 2, 5, 6. Definitely. Okay. What is the reduced expression from 1 to 5, 6? So what is the reduced expression? It's Z, right? So we get that. And what is the second grouping? I can do 6, 7, right? And from there I get X prime, Y prime. Okay. So this is the correct answer, but let us quickly summarize how Quinn-McCluskey is a more automated version. Okay. So you can see in Karnaugh map, there's nothing you can write a program for, right? It's all based on visualization of the group. But in McCluskey, what you do is the general steps are you write your minterms in the bit string notation, arrange them in decreasing order, okay? And then if you have to do it in programming perspective, you can put a loop that you count the number of ones and only with the adjacent ones, you find which of the terms are, common, which differ in only one literal. Once you know them, you will get this step 1 wherein you will reduce your variables from 3 to 2. Okay, how do you do that? The common ones will go as it is. Only the literals which differ, there you will get a dash or a missing term. Okay, then you keep on repeating it by comparing the dash positions and one new literal. Okay, in general for any n variable. Okay, after that, what you do, the terms which have been left, okay, you see their constituent terms. Okay, what terms actually from the actual expression led to those terms, and in that way you make this last table and you put across whichever term was involved in any of these terms. Okay, and then you non just use the essential prime implicants which are indicated by a cross in every row. So if there's any row, suppose which does not involve or involves a single cross even, such terms you have to take. Okay, so you cannot omit that term in your this Quinn-McCluskey method. Okay, is this clear? The two methods, Quinn-McCluskey and the Karnaugh map. Class, is this clear? You need to practice them to get a hands on them. Karnaugh map is kind of more important because that's more of direct discrete maths. Okay, so I'll stop.